Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Advertising Club's Vice and Versa. This is the first episode of Vice and Versa, and depending on how aggressively our participants take it, this could well be the last. So let's get started. Our topic for the first edition, one of my favorites, in which we discuss ad nauseum in our agency, and I'm sure in many agencies around the world. Brand purpose, responsible or opportunistic? Let's move on to our two participants. Santosh Desai, author, social commentator, and columnist, intellectual warrior par excellence. Josy Paul, chairman and chief creative officer of BBDO India. If eventually anything you're doing is in order to try and sell the product, whether it is, whether dolphins should be breastfeeding their little ones, or whether, sari should be, draped around robots, isn't it the lowest form of selling? Because if you're manipulating what people perceive as genuine social cause and actually doing it in order to increase sales of a product, isn't that in any way the lowest form of selling then? Because at least conventional advertising is pretty open about the fact that they're out to sell, they're out to convince, they're out to persuade, they're out to entertain. If you like any of that, please put your money up and buy our product because you're buying into us.
True brand purpose is actually personal. When you look at what REI did for Opt Outside, REI is one of the biggest chains for outdoor goods in the US. And on the day of the largest sales, so we're talking about sales, right? On the day when America buys the most, talking sales, they shut their shops. They said, we believe in standing for being outside. So on the day when everyone's going to crowd the stores, it's a holiday, national holiday, we shut our stores because we want to stand for what we believe in. Because we 16 people who started this company believe in the great outdoors. That's why we started this. So we close our shops and we tell everyone, this is what we're doing to show you we believe in what we do. It's amazing, right? Where does that come from? Is that sales? Is that manipulation? It's just somebody saying, I will show you in this world where there are people who are doing things for the sake of it. I'll show you what it really means. That's why I'm saying that true brand purpose all depends on where you are coming from. And you can sense it. You can sense a lie and you can sense a truth.
The problem here, in my view, is not the fact that brands are becoming socially responsible or they want to do good things. The problem is the fact that they're asserting that the primary reason for their existence is to do better for humanity, to do better for the world. It is the reason, and the kind of articulation you come across is that we get out of bed in order to do this. It is the passion that drives us beyond profits. So what is being presented to the world is the idea that it is brands that have this wonderful vision of the world, and that is their primary driver. That is the reason for their existence. This sits above everything else, the primary purpose why they are here. And in a sense, this reminds me, of an earlier era of super claims. There was this whole phase that I think, that everyone went through, where we had these kind of claims, which was these hard guaranteed to work in 15 minutes, remove wrinkles in 3 weeks, make your child grow by 21%, that kind of a claim, dodgy claims with asterisks that kind of were sort of giving disclaimers all the time. To my mind, this is the equivalent of that kind of a dodgy overclaim, where you take a kernel of truth, a token activity that you are engaging in, a little act, to use your words, that you perform, and blow it up as being the central purpose of your existence. And to me, this is of nothing but dishonest exaggeration. Brands now are therefore presenting themselves as saving the world in a variety of ways. Why now? Why are suddenly brands doing this? And the answer is simple. Because there is a belief that there is a new generation of consumers that values this, that is actually asking us, is looking askance at consumption and is looking beyond consumption. So what do brands do? What do they pull out? They pull out concern. And they ask to be bought, not for any other reason, but because their heart bleeds for us, everyone that they are catering to. And that becomes a reason why we must look at them. To my mind, this This way of looking at brand purpose is not only opportunistic, it is hypocritical. It can be banal and boring, and a whole sense of sameness that pervades all these earnest kind of the communications that we see. And it's interesting that a lot of these brands today are doing the exact opposite, of what they have done for decades. These are the brands that have dismantled the self-esteem of women. You're too fat, you're too thin, your hair is not shiny enough, your skin doesn't glow, you're too dark. Systematically, these are the brands that have done that. They have encouraged rampant overconsumption, reinforced all kinds of stereotypes, made fun of all human vulnerabilities. This is what over the years these brands have done, and now suddenly these are the paragons of virtue, lecturing to us. Share the load. They are lecturing now to us as to how we should behave, having suddenly discovered this noble side to themselves. You cannot get away from the fact that once you start putting yourself on a pedestal, people will ask difficult questions. How can you have Dove and how can you have Fair and Lovely coming from the same stable? However powerful Dove is, how do you explain? And you can do any fancy footwork that you like. You can try and reframe Fair and Lovely as much as you like. But that is the truth. And the question is a legitimate question. Many other signs of hypocrisy. Gillette for years has created a certain archetype of masculinity, decides one fine day to a woke ad which says call out toxic masculinity, and hello, that's a solution to all their problems. Take a brand like J&J, deeply trusted. And for it to pay $4.7 billion or to be awarded, to be fined $4.7 billion for something wrong, something deeply wrong with a talcum powder. What does it? How do you balance, and how do you, on the one hand, and they have a wonderfully crafted brand purpose statement, which talks about changing the trajectory of health for all humanity. How do you reconcile the two? Even the truth is, this is what happens when you start asking. You have to ask hard questions. The same company that talks about wash the load, share the load, was ranked the 7th worst employer in terms of paid family leave policies, which is the maternity leave policies and the like. Perhaps you could start by sharing the load of your employees. See, the other problem, and the other reason for the hypocrisy is that if you really believed all this, you would be measuring yourself on this. If you don't have the metrics to say, am I actually raising the self-esteem of women? How many times have you been called into a meeting? Have I been called into a meeting saying, hey guys, we don't seem to be raising the self-esteem of women enough? We've been called 100 times on this is not moving enough. What really moves an organization is what creates crises. If you're not measuring this, you're not moved by this. So, and if, say, for instance, Unilever, which is making perhaps a very well-intentioned effort to move towards purpose, if it talks about making commonplace lives lived sustainably, perhaps it can begin by setting itself goals for reducing consumption. I mean, on the other hand, the case it makes for brand purpose is the fact that brands that was part of their sustainable living package grew 69% faster than the other brands. Terrific. But how does it sit with creating sustainable living? If every company in the world was to try and get that kind of a growth rate, how do you reconcile this lofty goal of sustainable living with actively promoting unsustainable consumption? Even if for the sake of argument one agrees that the intentions are noble here, let's trust these intentions, let's go along with these intentions. The problem is a structural one. The ecosystem in which these brands are embedded does not value. It places value, the stock market, the investing community, they place value somewhere else. This is a fundamental contradiction. You can talk about purpose all you like, but you will be allowed to do it only till such time as you deliver results. The day you don't, there's all this talk of belief bubbling in from inside falls by the wayside. Because at that time, you will switch gears and you will start doing something else because you are located in an ecosystem that will not allow you otherwise. So perhaps before making these self-important claims about the world, perhaps organization could begin with something much more real, something much more basic. Pay your taxes. fully. Don't try and escape tax. Look after your employees well. Avoid contract labor to circumvent regulation. Not sack people the moment there is a slight downturn. Not make false claims in advertising. The number of false claims that these kind of companies, if you look at the ASCII sort of a roster over the years, the number of false claims that actually come from these, very high-minded sort of companies is extremely large. How do you again reconcile that? See, overall, what has happened is that we have ceded far too much space to corporations. And what is happening now is that now we are allowing them to lecture us on creating better world. And I'm not saying that corporations are not doing, that they're doing everything that they do is bad, or that the idea of a corporation or brands is fundamentally evil. Far from it. This is a question of overextending yourself. This is a question of making claims that are not sustainable. This is dishonesty, and this is posturing. It is puffery, and therefore it needs to be called out. And the worst part about it is, and the whole, and every time the awards kind of thing comes up, that is scavenging on the misery of others. I mean, there is nothing more than that. It is simply finding something to feed off on. And to my mind, that should be deeply distressing for anybody to sort of have to experience that.
Simple question to you. You seem to divide the world between black and white. If you have not done anything wrong or right, only then can you indulge. But we all know that the world is gray, right? So do you think that if somebody is willing to do something good in one part of his ecosystem or his life as a brand, but there are other parts which, due to various other compulsions in the world that we live in, he's not able to do it, he should not even make a start? What should companies do? Roll over and die and live evil forever?
That's a fair point.
They're trying to do the best they can. This is a start. Maybe they'll do more, and maybe that purpose campaign, maybe Share the Load, will become the ethos of the company. But you're saying either they start by revamping the company and restart it again, or they don't do anything at all.
No, I'm not making that point. I'm making the point, don't claim it. I mean, don't try and use it as a marketing peg. Get it right. I mean, it's in our lives. We don't always announce everything good that we do. This idea that something, good is worth doing only if you can display that. I mean, that's a marketing idea. In a real world, that's not how it works, right? If you want to do something good, do it by all means. You do it, and particularly if you claim that I'm doing it because I believe in it, not because it works for me, then by all means do it. What is the need to go on a pedestal? What is the need to lecture down to others? What is the need for that to be the central premise of everything that you are saying? So I absolutely agree with you. I absolutely agree with you up to the point that brands should be doing more. There should be a fundamental difference in the way that they see their interaction with society. But this need for that to be the reason why you should look at me, why you should buy me, once you do that, particularly in today's world, you are asking to be evaluated. You are asking for that scrutiny. And that is the point. I mean, I didn't get the chance to amplify when I said it is dangerous for brands themselves. You are setting yourself up to be asked the kind of questions that you are not being asked earlier, simply because you claim and you profess something which you cannot deliver.
Firstly, I must say that I'm a bit of an optimist, not an opportunist. Yeah. So that's the first point. And so I see it like Neil Armstrong said, one small step for brand, a giant leap for brand kind. Yeah. And I think that the point you made, Aggie, about the seed, I think when brands sow that seed, they have to live it. You can't sow the seed and run away because it was your seed. And so it's a start. And that first step is what makes me an optimist. So I come from that sort of point of view because I've seen that. I've seen how cultures have changed because somebody sowed a seed in that company. And for me, that gives me hope. I remember a pitch where we were so bad that in the pitch, we challenged the client and we said, Why does India need another insurance company? And what we need is insurance. What we need is education. Every mother and father wants their little girl to be educated. You want to offer insurance? For us, education is insurance. I don't think we want to work on this brand. And we left. I don't know what happened to us in that meeting. We really stood for what we believed in. But you won't believe what happened. A week later, we got a call from the marketing chief saying, we love what you feel, and we'd like to look at our world again. And then they gave us the business with this thought of education as insurance. They changed many of their plans to become more child plans, which are related to education. They created the Great Wall of Education as part of their commitment, right? This is all early days, just like early days of advertising. This is early days of this wanting to jump into the same sort of, gravy train. But it won't work for everyone, because they will be found out, and the truth will live, and the right guys who live it will shine. That'll come through. So in the early days, you can't say no to things. You got to give it a chance.
Do you have a rebuttal to Josy's rebuttal? Because he seemed to have a point when he's saying that it's just early days. This is how all movements start. But eventually it's going to become real and genuine. And you can't take a few bad pennies and say, the whole thing is wrong.
No, it's possible to sympathize with that view, except for the fact that, if it is early days, then your claim should be, consonant with the fact that it's early days. Show a little humility. Yeah. If you are starting out, you can't have it both ways. You can't be seen from day one to be saving the world and then plead that, but it's just, early days. It's just 5 years since we started, claiming these fantastic things. So please be gentle on us, be kind. You can't say that, right? Either. So by all means, don't make these claims. By all means, you have that, and you always have that, that option. And to my mind, this, and also, if the evidence such as it is that Josy is marshalling is like you said, anecdotal. These are sweet little stories. And I have absolutely no doubt about the purity of the intent that he personally may have. But that's just, that is meaningless. I'm sorry. Individual small sweet stories or one event there, they don't sit and they don't explain the scale of the ambition that brands are professing. To me, that is the mismatch. But otherwise, this is all good stuff. This is sweet. This is nice. It's by all, and the fact, the point that Aggie you made, this has become the industry standard. But this is, and how can you not feel aggrieved or upset about this giant kind of where everybody is showing phony concern? You see, if it was a small movement, if it is nascent stages, there are a few people doing it. Some are getting it right, some are getting it wrong. But this is not the description that is fair today. Everybody is doing this. That's the point you have been making, Aggie. Everybody is doing this, right? This has become the new industry standard without the responsibility of doing anything about it, in a real sense.
Santosh, I have a question for you, actually, on behalf of Josy, and particularly with your, pedigreed background in strategy planning and advertising. Do you think what we used to call, the great insight or the great landing strategy for creative takeoff, we're just done with it because there don't seem to be any more insights anymore? There's no new strategy coming out anymore. Everything has been done before. So there's no real fresh insight? Or you think it's an easy way out for planners, and planners are a part of this game with creative? Or it's just over, that phase is over. It's like the before after ads came and then they were over, and the jingles came and then they were over, and this is the end of super classical human insight as we knew it, and we are probably going to become the woke industry.
No, I absolutely don't think that. I think as long as people evolve, people change, and there are new currents that take place in terms of there are some, a lot of motivations are timeless. It's not that 20 years ago there were new motivations in that sense. Basic human motivations don't change. They just wear different clothes. They just have different contexts. They have different shades of meaning. And I think that's exactly what is happening even today. So to believe that somehow we have run out of insights and now the only thing we can do is to profess, love for humanity, I don't think is true. And that being said, that I would just point to the underlying mental model behind your question. That the problem with that question, to my mind, is that it still locates brand purpose in claims and in what agencies do. Brand purpose does not begin with agencies. There has nothing to do with agencies. Brand purpose is real only if it comes from brand organizations. Agencies have, they may be partners, but they cannot have a role, because brands have to believe that, have to act that, and advertising is a tiny part of its whole repertoire of actions. So to my mind, the problem, whenever we locate this discussion in advertising, that fundamentally underlines the problem with a concept like brand purpose, that we conflate it with saying stuff to people, whereas the whole point is, it is about organizational behavior in the deepest possible sense. It is an organizational worldview. It is the people that you hire. It is the decisions that you make, the choices that you make. Advertising is one of them. And this, to my mind, is just pointing and underlining that issue.
So just to add to that, I would like to say that, when we say and when we read in some great books, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was made flesh. I think there is a seed, when you say that, and I said it before, when you say it, it's in the air. And now you got to stand by it, Santosh. So when somebody says it, whether it's for manipulation or whatever, he said it or she said it or the organization has said it. And now they have to back it. And that's the start. So you got to start somewhere, right? Otherwise, if we come purely with this form of cynicism, then where do we begin?
Santosh, I would to say something to that thing.
No, I'm just saying that, that's not, I wish it were that simple. I wish it were that simple. I wish it was the fact that I have spoken, and therefore, because you're not, it's not just about you, right? It's not just about an individual. It's not just about a campaign. It is about, if say a large organization has to actually deliver to this, so many things have to change. It's, to me, that's glib at, to describe it badly, naive to describe it somewhat kindly, as a perspective, to believe that, once we have spoken, that way, advertising said all kinds of things, so let's not kid ourselves there. I think that would be kidding ourselves to believe that our word, has the potency to convert itself into a whole sort of a ecosystem of actions. I suspect that's not true.
Okay. So there's a question for Josy, which I had, which is, do you think, earlier communication was supposed to present the product or highlight the product or, purvey the product in a manner that would engage with consumers? And do you think that has stopped now, and now communication is supposed to create a product, because the actual product is there, and what we go and do with this kind of thinking is actually create a whole new amorphous abstract product and slap it onto the real product and put it out. So actually, when we get a brief, we start from creating a product and not communicating what the product is about.
Yeah, that's a great question, because if the product has a true differentiation that needs to be quickly sort of leveraged, then we must do it, because that's very simple and it's straightforward. And a lot of startups have that, right? When we work with startups, they have a new point of view with a new product, in which case you don't have to do all this, because the idea itself is so fresh. But there are products which are parity, products where there is no point of differentiation. And that's what I said, the unique selling proposition does not exist for a lot of products. And so you got to go to a unique point of view. And often that tends to translate into something that is deeper and, related to where people are coming from, society is coming from.
I think our time's up. That brings us to the vote of thanks. I'd like to thank both of you to actually come on stage and, come online and speak about this, because I've long felt, like I said before at the beginning of this debate, that what we need in this industry and in this country is the art of disagreement. And that, I think, helps, because once again, something I've always said, all good things are born out of conflict. So Santosh and Josy, thanks a lot for me, a stimulating debate. And for once, I was glad to be moderator and not on either side. So thanks a lot, Santosh. Thanks a lot, Josy. Like we said in our communication prior to the program, there are no winners, there are no losers. there are only gainers. And I think a lot of people have gained a lot from this. At least I have. Thanks a lot.
Santosh, I still love you, man. Maggie, so do I.